Gary, after that introduction, maybe I won't retire. I will maybe come back. Gary's been a terrific public relations man for me since 1973. Before that, I had the legend Dave Devenall. So I've been in great company. Gary likes to tease me as the winningest coach in St. John's history. Probably coached 1,000 games, but then he says, I'm the losingest coach in history. Last fall, Gary became the winningest coach in St. John's history, surpassing Major Lurch, Pat Dillon, Mike Tate. But along the way, he became the losingest coach in history, most losses. So now we have balanced each other. I want to welcome everybody, old boys, new boys, parents, relatives, cadets, special guests, parents, board members, and President Albert. But I also want to introduce President Albert's father, Mr. Albert Sr. Okay. I'm an old ball player. He's probably a little older. But back in West Virginia in the 1930s, he was a teammate of the legendary Lou Burdett. Now, first of all, who's Lou Burdett? I tell the boys in class, anything that's not important, I know. But I'm going to tell you about Lou Burdett. 1957 World Series, in 8 days, 3 complete games, 27 innings, and he gave the Yankees 2 runs. One of the greatest performances ever, and Mr. Albert was his teammate. Nickname of Albert then, out of Nitro, West Virginia, was Froggy or Lefty. Indeed, an honor and pleasure for me to address you seniors. The greatest teacher I ever had was in 2nd and 3rd grade, believe it or not. Mrs. Hintz. She wrote a poem about me. I learned more from that lady than I did any other person. Grade school, high school, college, graduate school, postgraduate school. I think of her often. I hope everybody here has had a Mrs. Hintz in your life. I want to pay tribute to my colleagues. They've been terrific to me over the years, and since the age of computers, they've really been helpful. Especially this year. But if they have any trouble next year, I'll give you a call. You plebs, there's no test tomorrow. You don't have to take notes, and put the computers away. Mr. Albert told me, don't speak for more than 2 hours. I told him, this will be the shortest commencement speech you've ever heard. But I have 2 messages, and it'll be short. Years ago, I would ask my students in my history class what person they would like to spend the evening with. The answers ranged from Jesus to Abraham Lincoln to Martin Luther King. Then the boys would ask me, who would I choose? Without reservations, my choice was always the same, my parents. They were so good to me, afforded me so many opportunities, I'd give anything to spend the evening with them and tell them thank you. You can have 5 siblings, cousins, friends, aunts, uncles. You only have 2 parents. So having said that, I'd like you seniors to rise and give your folks a round of applause. Thank you. I first visited this beautiful campus Memorial Day of 1937. My grandma was presenting a flag over here at Cushing Park. They were from a little town up north called Iron Ridge, just north of here. Memorial Day or Decoration Day was a big day in our family because my grandfather was in the Civil War, along with his 2 uncles. So you have the 3 Disler brothers. They were from Quincy. They arrived in Savannah, Georgia December of 1864 with Sherman's army. Ben Disler did not return to Quincy. According to the Cadet Review, there were hundreds of people there that day. I was all dressed up in my new sailor suit, and my dad said I was chasing the cadets as they marched back to campus. I thought they were soldiers. I began teaching in the 1950s. I spent a couple of years in the Army, and I tell the story to the boys my first day of class, that what it was like in America. We had 48 states. Eisenhower was president. In fact, I voted for him. Gary would be happy about that. There was a handful of Civil War veterans left. Few people in America had ever heard of a place called Vietnam. And the world champs of baseball, the Milwaukee Braves. When I came here in 1963 as a football coach, baseball coach, and history teacher, the old-timers took me under their wings. Men like General Farron, Major Lurch, Dave Devenall, Herbie Trapp, Hank Gillette, Dave Fairkey. They were very good to me. They're all passed on today, but I did have the honor of giving their eulogies. They'd be very proud of me, as my dear wife is, and she was made an honorary old boy at the noon luncheon. I've heard many commencement speeches, and I hope I can send you off with a message or two that you might be dealing with within the next decade. My father was a businessman. My mom was a homemaker with a lot of wisdom. I listened to the older people in my life, relatives, friends, bosses, teachers, coaches, and I learned a lot. My mom said always tell the truth. General Spanger, our president here in the 1990s, told the boys one day in chapel, you don't have to get all A's, you don't have to be captain of the football team, be a good person. He also said, don't quit. You start something, finish it. Back to home again. The message was, no matter what job you have, do your best. Be the best. I had a laugh when my dad would say, even if you're a street cleaner, be the best. I would think of them when I had my various jobs, high school, college, construction, factory work, landscaping, washing dishes, delivering mail. Before I get to my first message of the day, and I've only got two, some 20 years ago, I had a boy in class, 6'5", 200 pounds, no one to tango with. He failed the first semester of American history. He passed the second. We became close. The next fall, he was a senior in my study hall. As usual, I would start the year and say, anybody who gets me upset, Big Kevin will have 10 tours in guard path. Well, you could hear a pin drop, the most quiet study hall you ever heard. Now, I was kidding. Kevin knew I was kidding, but the 75 boys in study hall didn't know that. The reason I mentioned Kevin is what he wrote in the yearbook, and that leads into my first message. Most of the boys wrote they want to be a millionaire. They want to marry the most beautiful girl in the world. They want to retire at age 40 and travel the world. Kevin, he said, I just want to be happy. I just want to be happy. I never forgot it. I was in Chicago years later, and I bumped into him, along with his family. He hadn't retired. He wasn't a millionaire. He wasn't traveling the world. And he hadn't even married the most beautiful girl in Chicago. But he was happy. He had become a counselor. So my first message is, don't take the job just for the money. You're going to be doing it for the next 40 years. There can be nothing more miserable than going off to work each day, and you can't wait to the end of the day, or the weekend, or your little vacation, and then you retire and you fall over. My dad said you're going to be working for the next 40 years. Now, that doesn't mean take the terrific job at the country club and be third assistant pro and starve to death, but choose wisely. I must have chosen the right profession. I love school. I enjoy walking in the class each day, seeing the children, teaching, telling stories. The children, believe it or not, have kept me young. The parents have been marvelous. Same thing is true with coaching. It was my life. I spent a lifetime on the fields as a player and a coach. I headed off to school 73 years as a student and a teacher. Probably coached 150 seasons coaching. Loved it all, and I was so fortunate to have so many outstanding athletes, which translated into great teams and championships. My second message, a big one, will be the greatest challenge and responsibility facing most of you in life, and that's parenthood. Now don't laugh. You're going to be a parent or a father within the next decade or so. It can be a wonderful experience. It can be sad. It can be loving. It can bring heartache and disappointment. But once a parent, always a parent. It doesn't end when you get out of 8th grade, high school, college, or married. Your parents are still there. They can be 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 years old, and they're with you. We have families moving back to our block, grandchildren, children, returning home, loss of a home, a job, a divorce, or a death. They're back home with their parents. Worry, worry, worry. When they're little, some grandma once said, they're little worries. When they get older, they're big worries. You worry, will they fall off their bike, lose a tooth, drown in a lake? Stay healthy, the old childhood diseases. Pick good friends. Do well in school. And then, driving, dating, you're going to worry some more. Then, you give a sigh of relief when the car comes up the driveway at the end. The two things, or more than that, no one's trained to be a parent. We all try hard. With God's help, we succeed. Somewhere I read a few years back, the two things you can do for your children is turn them into good citizens and hope they're as good to their children as you have been to them. Even the Bible, Matthew, parents rejoice when their children turn out well. Wise children become proud parents. In 1977, my dear friend Gary Rickard and I were called into Major Lurch's office with our championship basketball team, a very good team. We're off to the state tournament. Now, Major Lurch was an old boy and a very good football coach here. We surrounded his desk, and he had a message. Regardless of the outcome of the game tonight, you boys have an advantage in life because you're men of St. John's. You didn't take the easy route. You overcame obstacles. You're receiving awards you never thought possible. You received a great education, but along with that, leadership, discipline, responsibility, getting along with each other. He added, it doesn't hurt going to chapel, and patriotism, plus respect. I've had a tremendous amount of respect here in my lifetime, and sadly to say, it's kind of lacking in society today. Then the major said, you don't know it, but someday down the road, you will reap benefits of your education. Now, if he were here right now, he would tell you seniors, look around. who's sitting next to you, who's behind you, who's in front of you, the beloved Schiffs. But only what was said on his deathbed. His colleagues gathered around him. One of them said, "It's too bad Schiffs had no children." He was a widower. Schiffs heard him, and he said, "Don't feel badly for me. I've had hundreds of children. The school's my family." That's how I feel after half a century here. The thousands of boys are my children. The school is my family. I've been fortunate to be part of this. So, in closing, I bid you farewell. I salute you. Come back. I'll be here. And God bless all of you. Thank you.